We are here with week 3 with Craig the Spazman Simmons and myself, Ronnie Davis, with the Rockstars Girls LAX podcast.
How y'all doing?
Oh,
let's do this.
Spaz. What a week. I mean,
yes.
Going into, from last Monday to this, there's a lot of games.
All I can think of is the line in Gladiator. Are you not entertained? it was definitely an entertaining time last week.
There's some ups and downs with different teams, and some teams sprouted up. But let's jump right into Class D.
Yeah.
And start with them, the Pelmac Red Raiders, who play, Canandaigua plays Pelmac today at 4:15.
And you can hear that game on Chosen Spot Radio, by the way.
Yes, you can. Be live on Chosen Spot Radio. And do we also have a YouTube channel too, right?
You never know when that streaming is going to work or not. So I don't really push it, because when I do and it doesn't work, people get mad at me. So
right.
Not that I don't mind people being mad at me. I'm just, so it's supposed to be, yes.
Yeah, so you had some picks last week, and one of the we both agreed on the pick that in Class D that Pelmac is going to play Minders, who was the only undefeated team in Section 5 at that point. And we talked about the 3 studs for Pelmac: Andra Savage, Emma Arnold, Jamie Walker, and they rolled over Minders like we thought.
The Trinity, I like to call them. Yeah, they didn't have an answer for it. I think they've lost 2 times now. I think they lost. I could be wrong, and don't tell my wife I admitted that. I'm just saying I think they've lost a couple games now. So, Pelmac just too strong. They are obviously the cream of the crop in Class D. Penn not very far behind them, but definitely at the top. The tier is Pelmac, no question.
Right. So it looks like from here it's Pelmac is lining up in the Section 5 finals. Could be against either Penn or Minders again. But by the look at the scores, and anything can change on any given day, it looks like Pelmac's in the lead there.
I believe so. I believe Pelmac will be heading out towards Buffalo at the end of the season.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
In Class C, okay. HFL got 2 wins this past week.
They've got 2 in a row. Absolutely. They held down, what was it? Eastridge was their first win. They went into overtime, I believe.
They did, which was really surprising to me, because that was a what we called supposed to be one of their layups, right? They went 0-8, and then they had some real winnable games. But hats off to Eastridge, right? They must have came to play and went up against what we call a tough HFL team.
Yeah.
But it went into either overtime or double overtime, with HFL coming out on top.
They did. They've won 2 times now, though.
Mm-hmm. So are they on a roll?
Well, it kind of makes us look pretty smart, because we've said that. We have, and you especially did say that sooner or later they're going to figure it out, and they're going to start winning games, and they're going to start winning them when they really need to, which is now in preparation for the second season, which we also call sectionals. So now is the time. I don't think they're peaking, but they're certainly on the upswing at the right time.
Right. And they're they're getting some tough play. They got some young kids too. They got some old kids, they got some young kids, some kids in the middle. Maeve O'Brien, a freshman, I think she's doing real well for them. Lexi Ruff, who's a senior going to Virginia Tech, I think she's doing real well for them. So if we can get the rest of the kids on board to buy in, and they are platooning the goalies. Raylan Bovenzi's in there, and Anna Youngblatt. It'll be interesting to see if they continue to platoon those goalies down the road.
You've listened to my broadcasts on Chosen Spot Radio. Right. You have listened to those, and you know that sometimes I don't agree with that, because you want to give a goalie an opportunity to get into a groove. But sometimes you have to, and sometimes it works. I don't throw a blanket statement over everybody at every time. So for some it does, for some it doesn't. But I think we can take some credit for that, Ronnie. I think because we kind of might have lit a fire under Coach McConnell there when we interviewed him and kind of called him out. You more so than I, but kind of what can you guys do as coaches to help this team right the ship? And now they seem to have done that. So perhaps maybe we helped them out. He owes you a shout out.
They got a tough week. They got Webster Thomas, who's I think 50-50 so far this season. And then they got the makeup game with Canandaigua, I believe, on Wednesday. And again, that game will be on Chosen Spot Radio. That's straight. How much do I owe you every time I say that? A lot. So, so we're looking forward to HFL in that class to see how they round out, and see how the Cougars are going to come up to play going into their last part of their season.
It won't be a layup for you. It won't be the quote-unquote layup for you. They're going to make you earn it, and there's no doubt about that.
They played Pittsford very tough. And they've been in a couple games, and so I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to it personally because I get to coach against Kevin O'Connell, Tim Mashesky, Rick Pound, and they're longtime coaches. So if I can get a win against them and my team can come out and play and get a win against them, that's a notch on my belt.
Absolutely. Now, do I have a second to throw a question at you? I want to ask you, you had mentioned that they have a tough road ahead here at the end. It seems if you look at everybody's schedule, most teams are finishing up with 2, 3, 4 straight road games to close out the regular season. Why is that? Well, I mean, who's doing the scheduling? Can you touch on that at all as to why teams might be, finishing up with a lot of road games? I know Canandaigua, you guys are finishing up on the road.
Yeah, I don't know. I came into this 2.5 months ago, so my schedule is already set. But someone in Section 5 or the athletic directors, they're the ones getting together and putting these schedules together. So
I got you.
I don't know if there's any rhyme or reason behind it, but you're right. It is tough, rolling into away games at the end of your season. I'd much rather play those away games early. And get a home schedule at the end.
Yeah, get the home games at the end. Well, Canandaigua has Pelmac tonight at home, and then you have HFL Wednesday, and then you have South Jefferson on Friday, and then the following Monday you finish up with Fairport. So those are 3 tough games. I mean, South Jeff, they're 8-3 out there in Section 4 or 3, Section 3.
Yeah,
my
Section
bad.
3.
Yeah, so. They're playing good lacrosse.
Yeah, and they play all the top teams in Section 3, so that's going to be a good game for us.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it. I'm not looking forward to the road trip, the 2.5 hours up to Watertown and playing up there on a Friday night. But I'm definitely, that's the lay of the land, and we're going to go up there and we're gonna play ball.
And yes, I will be broadcasting that game at South Jefferson.
That's good. That's,
I will be there.
That's great because all the people who don't want to take that 2.5 hour drive,
they can just listen on my station. Absolutely,
and listen. So
yes, sir.
And Jim from SE Video said that he's not going.
Okay.
So it's going to be all you, just on the radio.
I'm okay with that. I'm all right with it being all about me. I'm all right with that, Ronnie.
So that takes care of Class C. We're going to be looking at HFL. We'll look at those other schools, but I think they're going to pull away in that class. And, the next segment, I thought it would be cool to talk about, it is Rock Stars Girls LAX, is the name of our podcast.
Yep.
We've got several girls that are playing from Rochester in the NCAA tournament coming up.
Yep.
And the seedings came out last night. It was Selection Sunday.
Yes, it was.
And we got some kids playing from, let's start out with right off the bat, Emily Harashek.
Yep.
Right? Syracuse. I was on the phone earlier with Coach Gate, and I asked him how important, how much is Emily Harashek to this, this team who's got the number 5 seed in the bracket. Tell me about Emily Harashek, and he spoke no bones about it. She is the biggest part of this puzzle. He said she's going to be a top 4 or 5 Tewaaraton pick.
I was going to say she's all ACC, and she is one of the Tewaaraton 25. So, absolutely. By the way, also the boys have T.D. Erlin. I just want to throw that out there from Yale, the face-off guy. The only face-off guy. Everybody else is attack. I think there might be a defender in there, but we'll walk it back to the girls. Rychuk is absolutely imperative to what Syracuse is doing. No question about it.
Yeah, and they got some scorers on their team, that's for sure. And they have a balanced attack. Excuse me. But they also have what's called they run like 2 triangles, right? And Emily is just nonstop coming through those triangles, getting those passes coming through the middle, scoring the big goals. She's a leader on the team, and she's from here. She's from Rochester, and
Victor to be exact for anybody who's wondering. Yep.
She started out in Churchville and went to Victor, but I had the privilege of going up and to Syracuse a couple weeks ago, and I saw her, and she is not only a great lacrosse player, she's just a great kid.
Sure.
The nicest kid, and she, I don't know if any of you know this, but she lives at home, and she commutes to Syracuse from Victor every day.
I know that now.
Yeah,
I didn't.
And the biggest reason is because she wants to be around her family. And that I think that is great. She's got a younger brother who plays lacrosse. If you go to the local tournaments to watch Victor youth lacrosse play, you'll see her on Sundays at these games out there coaching and watching her little brother.
Well, Victor is one of the programs that gets it. You have to have a feeder program, and it's excellent to see the players that have gone through walk it back. And I know at Canandaigua they do it, and all the programs, the most successful programs all have one thing in common, a great feeder program that involves the players that have gone up, gone through, gone to the next level, and come back down.
Mm-hmm. So, and Victor's there.
Yep.
And we've talked about Victor Youth before. I mean, they're very strong, boys and girls. Like I said, this year Victor, they got some young kids coming up, so we'll talk about that more later when we talk about Class B with Victor. But the other girl that's seeing some time for Syracuse, that was a great player here in Rochester, is Emily Resnick from Webster.
Yep.
And she's from what Coach Gates says, she's a leader. She gets her minutes. She goes hard. And she's a smart player, and so there's 2 kids right away going to Syracuse, playing for Syracuse this year.
Yep.
From Rochester. So Syracuse is a number 5 seed. We're going to be calling in a minute here. We're going to call Kelly Amante Hiller from Northwestern, and talk to her. She got the number 4 seed.
4 seed. Yep.
Now currently she does not have any Rochester kids on her team.
I was going to ask her about that, but she's going to have one next season.
Yeah,
so.
She's got a Rochester kid coming next season. She's got some Syracuse kids coming next season, but she's got some Section 3 players on her team. So, and those Section 3 kids are playing. You got Amanda Kramer and Jilly Girardi. But there was some she's had some Section 5 kids.
Sure.
She had the Nesselbush kids there. The Bowen kid from Brighton, I believe, played there. And so she's no stranger to upstate New York,
right?
Girls lacrosse. She's got some real. Danielle Spencer is from Brighton. She went to Northwestern, and Danielle is now the head coach at Dartmouth, and she made the tournament.
Absolutely.
So there's a lot of the tree of Northwestern and Kelly Hiller sprinkled throughout the tournament as well.
It's nice to hear us talk about Northwestern in a positive light like this, especially about women's LAX, because you walk it back. What's the one thing, the mark on Northwestern, when you hear that, you always think of? They didn't win a football game forever. That's the one thing you always think of. And then when they did finally win the game. So it's nice to hear, it's nice to talk about Northwestern in a positive light like that. And it's nice that it's women's lacrosse that we're doing it with.
Yeah, the great thing that they're scheduled to play at Canisius this past when the season started. And the weather didn't allow for that to happen. So, I took a phone call in the morning from Coach Amani and she needed a place to play, so I directed her out towards the Pinnacle complex out in Victor.
Yep.
And they ended up playing the game there. And nobody knew that they had to go play the game there. So we got on, our monster, distribution list, and all of a sudden we had, when I got there was 200, little monsters playing there. And the great thing about it was after the game, all those little monsters were wondering how they're going to go get Northwestern gear. Where do we get the sweatshirts? Where do we get the T-shirts? So,
well, I understand. I think she's on the line.
Kelly, you there? Kelly, you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, Kelly, thank you so much for coming on the Rockstars Girls Lacrosse Show. I'm here with Craig, the Spazman Simmons from Chosen Spot Radio.
Nice to see you.
Congratulations. I believe is in order. You got the number 4 seed in the tournament coming up, and you, since joining the Big Ten, you have your first win over Maryland. Talk to us a little bit about that, Cal.
Yeah, I think it's been a process. We obviously had a run of championships a few years back, and then. We lost a little bit of confidence, and we've been, slowly building it back up. And I felt last year we had a great year. We weren't able to make the Final Four, losing to UNC, but, we were excited about this year coming in. And this team is, just has a lot of heart. I think the first time around in the regular season against Maryland, we played strong, for about 50 minutes, and then Maryland kind of exploded in the last 10 minutes and was able to beat us there. And, we really were excited about the second chance. And we knew we could do it. We had a lot of confidence in this team and just so proud of them.
Hey, Coach Craig Simmons, I'd like to ask you, we often talk about Lady Mo, momentum, and how important that is in sports. How important was it for Northwestern to win their final 3 regular season games, 2 of them over ranked opponents, and then beat ranked opponents? You beat Michigan and then number 1 seeded Maryland to win the Big Ten tournament. How important was that from a momentum perspective as you head into the national tournament?
I think it's really important. I think momentum, week by week is super important. That's something that we really focused in on trying to get better every day so that, each week that we go out, we're progressing and getting stronger and stronger. And, it's a process building a team throughout a season and finding, the best spots for where people fit in and, shifting people around and moving them. And so, I'm just really excited about where we're at. And, now it should be interesting to see how we come out this weekend with, just having really kind of overcoming those top 5 teams. We hadn't gotten a win at that level this year, and this was a big one.
Oh, that's great, Kelly. Excuse me. The name of this podcast is Rock Stars Girls LAX, and we venture into Section 3 talking about girls and teams, and Section 5. Your current team doesn't have any Section 5 players on it, but you do have a few Section 3 players. You got Jilly Girardi and Amanda Kramer up there, and then you got some recruits coming. You have Aaron Kuykendall coming next year. You have the Shanley twins out of Syracuse. Then I see you also have some 19 recruits coming out of New England. Not a huge amount of kids coming from the Maryland area, like Maryland does and those down there. Talk to me about your recruiting out of the Northeast and the tree that actually is coming from the Kelly Amani Hiller. You got Danielle Spencer that's from here coaching at Dartmouth. She just made the tournament. You're building your tree. How important is the Northeast to you?
Yeah, I think it's always been important to us. I mean, obviously I'm from the Massachusetts area, so we tend to draw well there. But with BC being so strong in that area now, and you got other schools like Dartmouth and a bunch of others, we have to really make sure we compete and fight for those prospects. And upstate, I just think we've always done well with those kids. I think that they're not afraid of the weather and all that, and so we've historically done really well in Rochester. Kids like Danielle Spencer, Hillary Bowen, those are probably the two most notable, but we've had a bunch of others as well. Emily Eichner, B. Conley. So it's fun for us to recruit in that area, and we hope to continue. We've had great success. Jill Girardi's had a great season for us this year and last year as a freshman, and so we hope to continue to keep that tradition of drawing the kids from upstate New York.
And to add on top of the Shanley twins from Section 3, who are having an outstanding year, one of my favorite players in all of Section 3 is Hannah Johnson, and she's coming to you as well. And I'm biased towards lefties. She's having a great year. Baldwinsville's ranked, I believe, number 1 in the state right now. So you added her to the mix, plus the Shanley twins. So it seems like your 19 class from the Northeast is strong. Now you also, I believe, you have a niece too that's coming in that 19 class. Is that correct?
Yes, she's from Massachusetts, played at Fair Academy, and is coming to play for us next year. So, and I
hear she's having a fantastic year up in where she's playing high school too. Is that correct?
Yeah, she's pretty athletic. Her dad was an NHL player for 17 years, so she's got great bloodlines there, and she's a great kid. She's a hard worker. and really wants it. So I think that's the biggest determining factor for the kids that come to our program. As long as they have a great positive attitude and they want to work hard and they want to have an open mind and get better, they're going to do great things in this program.
Right. When you and I worked together with the U19 team, there's one thing that you said to me that really stood out, and it was in my conversations actually with Hannah Johnson's father. You said to me, Ronnie, we're gonna be back. So Northwestern, they took a little break from winning national titles, and I can't help to think that your new indoor center and your facilities, along with your pedigree and coaching and tradition, can only help with that recruiting. How important is those new facilities that you have?
I mean, honestly, Ronnie, it's a game changer for us. I think that we've always done well kind of finding the right kids that fit our program and the kids that want to, be a part of the things that we stand for. But I think now, just to have the ability to play games inside, when it is cold out, and have the ability to practice inside all the time when we want to, and have that controlled environment. It's truly been, this is our first full year with it, and it's been a game changer. I mean, we've pretty much sold out every game that we had this year inside. And, we have a great fan base, so it's a great environment for the student athletes to play in. And, we really have the whole package. Obviously, Evanston and our campus is a beautiful place and a tremendous academic institution. So I don't feel that my job is very hard to sell what we have now. And, and it's just a matter of finding the right kids that will fit our style and fit our philosophy.
Coach, while I have you, with the proliferation of scholarship companies and businesses and all the pressure on high school kids, helicopter parents, all that kind of thing, social media, is there any, we have, sorry about that. We have players that listen to the podcast. Is there anything that you can say to the young ladies, the juniors, the seniors getting ready to enter into the entire recruiting process? Anything you can say that might help them along a little bit and take the pressure off of what they're going through?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think that the biggest thing that I would say is that, the timing is different for every kid. All right. Selena Lasota is one of the best players in the country. And she did not commit until, later on in her high school career. And, I think that you have to realize that things happen at different times for different people. So you can't, I think the biggest stressor is when a peer, makes a commitment because they've, felt like it's right and they've always dreamed about going to a school, but then you have another person who, really hasn't explored yet. I think just being really comfortable with yourself and knowing that things are going to work out. My dad always said the cream always rises to the top. So if you focus in on just playing hard and being great and learning every day and getting better every day, your opportunity will come. And just trusting that.
Thank you.
Well, that's great. Kelly, thank you so much for coming on the show. I wish you nothing but the best of luck in this tournament coming up. It looks like that you're on a collision course. I know you got to get over the first few games with Maryland again. And is that correct? Are you you guys are in the both upper bracket?
Yeah. We got a lot ahead of us before that.
Yeah, correct.
And so does Maryland.
Saw that coming.
There's a lot of great teams in this tournament. You really can't take anyone for granted. I mean, for us to have the chance to play either Stanford or Notre Dame, I mean, those are two fantastic teams right off the bat. You obviously know Maddie and how great she is from Notre Dame. We played them already once this season, and then if we win, then the next bracket has a number of good teams as well. So, there's a lot of work ahead, but we're excited about that. And thanks so much for the well wishing.
Yeah, and go Cats! You got a lot of people in here in Rochester after you played that game here against Canisius that are Wildcat fans now. So go Cats! And if you need anything from us, don't hesitate to give us a call.
Thanks so much. Take care. Go Cats.
Thank you.
Thanks, Coach.
Bye.
So she is the quintessential class act.
Absolutely.
Of women's lacrosse coaches.
Sure.
It's often asked. My own daughter going through the recruiting process now, right? She's a 10th grader in Pittsford, and she's going in what we call her tour year, right? So she's going to be able to have contact with college coaches come September. And so this summer is really important to all the 2021s in girls lacrosse, because that's when where all the college coaches are going to be this summer watching them. And it's often asked to me, have you thought about different schools for your daughter? First of all, she's going to make her own decision.
Sure.
But what I try to show her, and what I really think is important, is to be comfortable with a coach. And Kelly is, she's a mother, she's a wife, she's a coach, she's intense, she does her homework, everything she does very well. Mm-hmm. So when you're looking at schools, you can't help to look at Northwestern and what she's done, and if she calls, and to recruit you, my advice, you better listen.
I got you there. I'm a Syracuse mark. I'm a mark for Syracuse.
Yep.
So they're there at the top, and then I have an affinity for Canisius. They're close, and then everybody else afterward. But if somebody were to ask me if my daughter was a lacrosse player and she was getting looks from those types of D1 schools, I would try and, I would obviously say, oh, you make your own decision. But I would try to push her towards the Qs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, the third player in which Kelly, alluded to that we got to talk about is Notre Dame and Maddie Howe.
Maddie Howe. I had the opportunity for ROC Sports Network. I don't know if you know Gary Sadak out there. I do some work for him, and I had a chance to interview her. And I have a picture of her looking up at me like I'm ready to, jump on her. It's just funny. I'll have to find that and share it. But she is, she's intelligent. Her acumen as far as the game goes is top notch. And Notre Dame got a good pick when they picked her up.
Yeah,
no question.
And Notre Dame, they're in a good spot to make some wins in this tournament. And she's their main player. Her and Andy Aldave, are the 1-2 punch there for Notre Dame. And Maddie, when she went to Fairport High School, she was an All-American there. And when you ask coaches about Maddie Howe, they'll say best player on the field. Both teams, no matter what game, she was the best player on the field.
Both ways too.
Yeah,
both ends. But what does it say about your tournament when you're playing is Stanford and Notre Dame?
Right.
What's that say about what's going on when that's your playing? That's
right. The field is competitive.
It is.
And Notre Dame is done real well in the ACC, with those kids. But Stanford, you look at Stanford, and let's be honest, they're probably the smartest team. You got UPenn in there, right? You got Dartmouth in there. You got Princeton.
Yep.
So you got several Ivy teams, and Stanford, but when you watch Stanford play, they're not the most athletic kids. Their sticks are good, but they're smart. They don't really make a lot of mistakes mentally, and as that can help through a game.
You have to limit your own mistakes, no question about that. So there, I don't know where you were going from here, but how about Indy? U of Indy. They have Hannah Rio. She's a senior. Mm-hmm. She played at Canandaigua. And Cassidy King.
Lindsay Rio.
Yes, Lindsay Rio.
Yeah.
That's not the first time I've gotten those two mixed up. And for some reason, I keep getting Bernicki and Lupton mixed up when I'm doing broadcasts. But Cassidy King, goalie. Yeah. Standout goalie from Canandaigua last season. Now the starting goalie. She started every game out there at U of Indy. Lots of Ali Panera out of Pittsford playing for Ithaca. Megan Shepkowski from Canada.
Panera's playing for Ithaca or Lemoyne?
No, it's Ithaca.
Is it?
Yep. Lemoyne. Oh, yeah. Somebody is playing for Lemoyne too that had committed somewhere else.
Yeah,
and I can't remember who it is.
At Lemoyne, we got, I think Panera's at Lemoyne. You got Britt Pollock from Fairport's at Lemoyne. Sydney Mahar. We're going to speak to her dad coming up. She's at Lemoyne. They have several Section 5 kids.
I'm going to have to prove you wrong on the Ellie Panera. She's at Ithaca.
You might be right, but I know that
we'll go outside in the parking lot on that one, man.
We'll talk to Coach Mahar in a second and see who the Section 5 kids that are there.
Yeah.
I think there's a Pittsford kid, but I thought Panera was. You could be right. But you're right. Indy, he's recruiting real hard out there. Not sure that he's going to be competitive enough to win the Division II national championship this year. But he's got more Section 5 kids coming there next year. A few from HFL.
Yep.
I know Mackenzie Camp is going there from HFL. They got Franny Mashura out there now. She's from Hilton. She's one of their starting midfielders.
Yes.
So,
but Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say. So they're stockpiling. It's going to be a little bit before they get some more kids and are competitive for that division.
I was just going to walk it back real quick when you said they might not have a realistic chance, but they have the same chance as everybody else, 50-50, and they put themselves in a position to have that opportunity. How many other teams would give anything to be in that spot? That's what I try to tell teams and players. When they're in a sectional final and they lose, I say, think of how many other teams what they would have given to be where you just were. You had the opportunity. So, revel in that. Find the positive in that. So
yeah. So do we have Bill Mahar getting called pretty soon? Oh, I got it signed 1 minute. We'll have Coach Mahar from Fairport on the line.
1 minute to go.
1 minute. And his daughter is playing at Lemoyne. She's a sophomore there. Doing very well. Starter. From what I hear, she's not coming off the field, which is great. So Lemoyne, the defending Division II champs, but it just goes to show you more rock stars, right? More kids out of Rochester.
The more rock stars, the better.
That are sprinkled throughout the NCAA and playing. And even, look at Virginia. You got Jilly Corvado is out there, right? Megan Plain is out there at Virginia. All over.
Well, word is out. Word is out. Word is out, and it all walks back, if you ask me, to the feeder program. It all walks back to starting them out young. When I was coaching wrestling, people would say, "Isn't 5 years old too young?" Tell that to the districts that we're going to compete against who have kids starting at 5 years old.
Right.
So you kind of have to keep up with the Joneses on that deal.
And it's a good point leading into our next guest is Bill Mahar, who has a kid playing right now at Lemoyne, as we said, Sydney Mahar, but he doesn't have a kid in Fairport program right now, and he's still coaching. But he's been, when I asked him previously, why are you still doing? He said, because I've coached these kids since they were little.
Well, I believe he's on the line right now.
Bill, are you there?
Hey guys, yeah, I'm here.
Bill, we're here with Craig the Spazman Simmons from Chosen
Coach?
Spot Radio and myself, and thanks for coming on today to the Rock Stars Girls LAX podcast.
Love it.
And we're talking. We're just about to enter into Class A and start talking about Class A, but we've been talking about the Section 5 girls that are in college right now, are in the NCAA tournament for their respective divisions. And, you have your daughter, Sydney, is on the number one team in the country right now. Lemoyne playing a lot, major contributor on that team. Britt Pollock, it's drawing a blank. Who are the other Section 5 kids that are playing for Lemoyne right now?
So you miss Monica Santa.
Okay, and she just recently has an injury, correct?
Yeah, she just tore her ACL. Senior campaign here, tore her ACL. Actually, it was a senior at Pittsford. Back in, I think, 2014, she tore her ACL her senior year. This is her other knee, and so she is out, but she's a Section 5er. The other one we're missing is, Maddie Howe at Notre Dame. I don't know if you picked up on her at all, but she's they entered the tournament. You already talk about her?
Yeah, Maddie, and you're one of the ones that I've spoken to, and you got a privilege to coach Maddie, and, since she was little, what kind of impact does a Maddie Howe play on any team she's on? And also remember, Maddie has had two knee surgeries, right? She's blown her knee out twice, and now she's starting for Notre Dame. When you coached her, how important was her impact on the field?
Well, I mean, obviously her IQ is very high. She's a tenacious competitor, so it's always good to have that. And she's been that way since she was a little kid. I mean, if you go back into third, fourth grade, she played at a very high level, just never stopped. And then didn't play anything in the summertime, and then it came out and started as an 8th grader in Fairport. We coached her just in the youth, and just from that competitive standpoint, that's the type of player she is. I mean, you go back on it, and her first injury took her out for a year. The kid came back within a year, and ended up just doing phenomenal as a leader on our team as a 10th grader, kind of taking us into the sectionals against Pittsford, and we ended up losing that game. But big impactful player for Maddie. And then, to have the same injury happen to almost the day, the day to the opposite knee in the summertime, and then kind of hurt her junior campaign, but she came back as a senior, and just unbelievable performance. And then, she hasn't looked back since. And I'll tell you, that's from, I'll tell you a lot of that is just on her and her training regimen and what she does in the off season and during the season to be prepared for, the high school level, but then at the next level at Notre Dame, it's just taking her far beyond her dreams. I mean, she's, was the ACC, I think, Rookie of the Year in her freshman campaign, or for Notre Dame, their leading scorer as a freshman. And then she's just carried on to her sophomore year here and just doing phenomenal, leading them into the playoffs.
Hey, Coach, it's Craig. Ronnie and I were talking a little bit about, it seems that at the end of the season, especially this year, everybody has a tough road ahead, like 2, 3, 4 road games. It always seems at the end of the season, whoever makes the schedule, it shakes out, so it's a really tough deal for everybody. As a coach, what are some of the things you can do to use the toughness at the end of a regular season and transition that into the second season for sectionals?
Yeah, no question. At the high school level, it's tough because, you see scores out there. For example, you see, I know Coach Davis had a tough one against Brighton the other day. Teams are always adjusting, right? You're adjusting to what your strengths are. And, anybody can beat anybody in this Section 5 at this point. So, it's how you prepare, and it's the little things I think we talk about at Fairport are, we need to close halves off, quickly. We need to, close with a score or a great stop. And kind of projecting that through the rest of the game and playing a 50-minute game in total. And that's where you need to get to with a lot of these kids, especially when, we've got 2 sophomores on our team that are major contributors, that haven't played at this level. So it's important to make sure that, obviously the practices are tight and you're working extremely hard on, the things you're good at and repping and preparing for those, those teams that you're going to play. So it's very, very, very difficult, with the competitive level of Section 5 and including Class A, it's very, that we're preparing, right now every day for, that next win, number one, but also to prepare these kids for the second season, if you will, as you said, getting them ready to play in that opening round of the tournament. So we're looking forward to that.
Now, Fairport, like many other, if not all, the Section 5 schools has a player or two that's outstanding and probably deserves the mark against the other teams, could get face guarded. You guys have Morgan Schwab, very dynamic player. I know that when you come to Canandaigua, I'm not afraid to say it ahead of time, we're probably going to try to limit her touches as much as possible. How do you prepare for the fact that your best player may not touch the ball during a game?
Yeah, without giving the ship away to you, Ronnie, I'm gonna tell you what we're gonna do to defend against that. But it's exactly what I was looking to say earlier around these other kids and getting them involved early into it. And a kid like Morgan is very tough to stop, just because of her athletic ability, number one. And just her prowess and IQ in the game to kind of figure out how to guard against maybe a face guard or maybe a early double or a tough backer that's going to slide easily. So what we do is try to, obviously involve the rest of our kids. We've got, a couple kids that are going also to Albany with a couple playing at high levels here. So we look to those kids as seniors and in some cases juniors to kind of step up and work through that, right? So whether it be, some tactical things like, putting in a set that can help us contribute to getting Morgan either as a picker and or as a, getting her involved behind the cage. So we'll look to do some different things and, make adjustments as we kind of go through.
Now, this is Mara Karp's first year as the head coach. And, like Canandaigua, I'm the first year Canandaigua coach, but your program has seen some turnover, but you and Coach Monte have been, the anchors there. How is it bringing Mara along? It seems like she's doing a great job. How's the chemistry there, and are the kids buying into what you guys are doing?
Yeah, it's tough. We've had, a little bit of a run here with a couple of coaches over, 4 years. The consistency with Liz and I has been great. We've kind of carried our messaging through as we go. And, I think over the last couple of years, it was a little more difficult. The chemistry really was a little tougher than what we had expected. So, obviously, we have a new coach this year, and Mara is very young, but obviously relates well to the kids. She's closer in age to the kids than Liz and I, being in our, late 40s, early 50s here. So she relates to the kids very well. She's got a great chemistry. She's about these kids, just a well-organized person, which, obviously helps us when you're organized and can, get that messaging across daily with the kids, and it's there and they see you're organized and ready to go, then it makes for an easy implementation of your daily practice plan and then your game plan. So she's done a great job with that, and I really believe the kids are buying into it and, still having fun. You know what I mean? That's what it comes down to, and not making it a challenge every day they step on the practice field. But, then it comes down to, that blended balance of fun and work, and I think we're finding that there. So she's doing a great job. I think the kids are responding to her, and, time will tell here as we kind of move forward into the playoff season. But, I think if we peak at the right time, then, things will be good.
Hey, Coach, we had Coach Hiller from Northwestern on, and I asked her, with the proliferation of all these scholarship companies and all the pressure that we're putting on kids, to move on, make their choices for college, if she could give any advice to prospective recruits, coming up and about to enter the process. And I'd kind of like to ask you to coattail onto that and just give us, some words. Is there anything that you can do or that you do by way of giving some advice to your juniors, your seniors, as they start to enter the process? And do you keep tabs on them once they're gone?
Yeah, great question. And, certainly, we're talking to these kids, they all have aspirations. A ton of them are obviously playing in the club leagues, for teams like Monster, teams like Common Goal. So they're all aspiring, obviously, to move to that next level. And, a ton of pressure on these kids to do that at a high level. I always, I went through this, process with my daughter, and I've coached her, obviously, and I've coached a number of other kids that have gone on and played at that level. And it's, it really comes down to the kid, but I also feel that, you got to assess the situation on where you're going to be realistically. And I think your club coaches and your high school coaches can kind of get you into that. The recruiting process is a crazy one. You don't know what some coaches are looking for, or what they see in certain players, and then make decisions on that early on. And that's a really, really hard thing to kind of get across to a 17, 16, 15-year-old kid. So it's that step back and assessing, where you're going to be, and then, put you in the proper area. So number one, obviously we look at the education, where you're going to get the greatest education. Number two, we talk about the earlier you're being recruited, the harder it is. Let's say you're an eighth grader like Erin Quakendale, and she gets recruited, at Northwestern at 13 years old. How do you know what's going to happen over the next 5 years with that program, with that kid, all that stuff? Very difficult. So, think about it from a 15-year-old's perspective. It's probably pretty tough. So, it's working through that process and talking to them and making sure that they're thinking about other things. It's a short 4 years. I mean, I've got a sophomore right now. She's going to be a junior. So it goes so fast. You want to make sure it's the right choice, the right size school, all that good stuff. But, it's a very difficult process, and one, obviously, that's not taken lightly because of the magnitude of what's going on with these. And, it's a total process, as Ronnie and I have talked about numerous with, even his daughter, going through choices of, the education, number one. And then, and then the financial metric around it is huge as well. So, it's a very difficult thing, but, I'm liking the fact that they pushed that to September of their junior year. Gives you a little bit more time, a lot less pressure. But then you hear more about, things changing again and going younger. So, remains to be seen. But I've liked the last year or two with not hearing so much as to where they're going and what's going to happen, and what's going to happen with the high school as opposed to they're already talking about when I'm playing X, Y, Z or whatever place they're playing. What can happen in moving on from their high school. So. I'm liking what I'm seeing right now as far as that, but also there's some change coming on, I think, potentially next year with that as well. So difficult to ascertain right now, but I'm liking what I'm seeing right now.
Good. Well, Billy, thanks so much for coming on the show. We look forward to the Fairport, Pittsford, Rush Henrietta, Hilton, Gates Chili, or Greece. I'm sorry, Greece is in there in Class A.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. Yeah, we'll see. I think. Yeah, we've got a couple of teams coming up here. I think in the near future that we'll get some assessment there, especially around that Canandaigua team. See how we're gonna end up.
It'll definitely be a fun game. And I don't mind letting the cat out of the bag. Morgan is not going to really touch the ball very much, but don't let her mother know that.
Buddy.
Don't let her mother hear that podcast.
You'll hear that already. But hey, I know that boxing one you played on Quakendale, so I've already seen that. I already know it. We already know what's coming, Duke.
Oh, good. Well, thanks so much. Good luck the rest of the season, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks, guys. Have fun.
Thanks, Coach.
Billy went through the recruiting process with his daughter, and I felt that his daughter was, a Division I kid. And to be quite honest with you, Lemoyne will beat 80% of the Division I schools, right? But she didn't get caught up in the Division I, hoopla.
Yeah, that's mostly mom and dad that get caught up in all that. I mean, it's been my experience. So.
Absolutely, and I thought that so far Sydney Mahar has made a great decision in going to Lemoyne. She's a 2-year player. She's playing a lot. She's playing a ton, and she's won one national title already. They're ranked number 1 going into this year's tournament. So
go Dolphins.
That's the perfect example of. Not going with the hype, Division I, and going with the right fit, and so far it's working out well.
Yeah, but Dad has a level head, and helped her walk through that.
Yeah, he does, and he's he has several kids, and I think for that one they made the right choice.
Now we can commit several podcasts to the whole recruiting process.
Sure.
I worked for one of the quote-unquote recruiting companies, and when you come in and you tell a parent, hey, I'm here to look at your kid, they automatically think it's the college. And it's like, no, wait a second, give me $5,000 and then we'll talk about it and that kind of thing. And then the balloon or the air just falls right out of the balloon. Sure. And there's so much pressure on these kids to commit and to get involved. And then the whole competitive parenting thing steps in. Oh, my kid's getting a look from a D1 school. I'm a better parent than you are. You know what I mean? You've seen it.
Yeah, the parents do drive the ship. It's no doubt about it. I'm going through it now, right? And I think that everyone who asks me, where's McKenna going? Where's McKenna going? It's very clear. McKenna's going to go where she decides to go. It's going to be her decision. I can only guide her and give her the information that she's going to need to make a decision. But, come September, she's going to have a decision to make.
But when you say, if we can take just a second, when you say I can guide her, give the parents out there listening a little bit of advice to help them help their kids, help them help her.
Right.
When you say I can guide her, what are you talking about?
So there's some criteria that you got to go through. First, let's look at academically. Is she an Ivy League kid? My kid personally is not an Ivy League kid. So I take all the Ivy League schools, and with the addition of Stanford and Duke, and move them over to the.
So you're saying be honest.
Yeah,
be honest with yourselves.
And it's process of elimination.
Sure.
So the next thing you got to ask is, let's say take Northwestern. Normally they give out historically a 30% scholarship, right? Well, can you afford the other $50,000 a year to go to that school if you get a 30% scholarship? No, if you can't, you take those schools and you move them off to the side, right? Then you look, so right away you got academics out of the way, you got financial out of the way. And then you got to look at, do you think, you can play there? No one wants to go to a college and sit the bench, right? No one wants to hear you'll play in year 3. They want to go and play. So, get a realistic expectation of where your kid is athletically and where she's going to be in 2 years. Not so much where she is right now, because they're still young enough that they're going to grow, but where are they going to be in 2 years? Is your kid going to be able to put the work in that's going to take to get to a top 20 school.
Because it's a way of life. When you go up to that top 20 school, it's a way of life.
It is.
Yeah, and they expect you to eat, sleep, and breathe that team, that sport, whatever you're doing. So, and I like the way you emphasize the word realistic expectation.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be realistic, or else you're going to be in for a long 4 years, right?
Sure. Yep.
So those are my ideas of guiding.
Okay.
Let's do process of elimination. Let's get the schools out of the way that know you're not going to be a good fit for you, and then we'll look at the ones that are. So
where are you going next? Because I got something that. When do we have the get it off your chest moment?
I don't really think that we need to talk about Class A this week. Okay, there wasn't that many matchups in Pittsford, RH, and Fairport.
Yeah.
So Pittsford, ran their table, but they didn't, have great competition. RH as well, and Fairport.
But they play today. Don't they? Who did?
So
don't
Pittsford
they play today?
Pittsford plays Spencerport today.
Spencerport today.
Right.
Okay.
So if we jump into Class B, which, let's talk about the big game, right? Yes. Canandaigua was on a run, and we ran into Brighton.
Grr.
We ran into Brighton, and I got to be honest. I take nothing away from the Brighton kids. Even Coach Curtis, Coach Curtis coached a great game. Okay, a great game for Canandaigua, for Brighton to win that game.
Sure.
Rachel Strasden and Susan LaFountain and Megan Marangola and Katie Liederman, they played very well. Delaney McManus for them, their goalie played okay. But, of course, my opinion of the game, okay, I lost. I'm going to sound like a sore loser. I can't blame the game on the officials, okay? That's ridiculous. But either way, I'm going to sound like a sore loser, but I am. The game...
Shoot straight,
They
man.
stalled the ball, 90% of the game.
Yeah. There was one point where they stalled for 8 minutes.
Without a shot.
And this is without anything. They would encroach the fan and then back out. This is my problem. This is where I'm going to get something off my chest. And with that said, all the opinions expressed on the Rockstar Girls LAX podcast are those of the people expressing them. With that said, I don't blame Coach Curtis. It's a strategy, because the longer they hold the ball, that 10 minutes they don't do anything with it is 10 minutes you can't do something with it. So it's a as the line says, it's a bold strategy, Cotton, but it's boring for people who are watching the game. It's also, I don't blame him. I blame the rules. Mm-hmm. I blame the rules, and I am officially right now starting a campaign to get a shot clock in girls lacrosse at the high school level. And I want to know what your opinion on that is. Now, I'm a hypocrite, because when you beat Spencerport and went into stall ball with 4 minutes left to go, I said, you know what, folks? I fully encourage it, because I was being a Canandaigua homer. Mm-hmm. I was like, yes, Canandaigua is going to win this game if they, quote-unquote, take the air out of the ball. I want a shot clock at that level, because you cannot allow 8 to 10 straight minutes of no action. Imagine basketball without a shot clock.
Right.
Okay? The best thing they did to save the game of women's lacrosse at the college level was institute a shot clock, implement a shot clock. It's the best thing they've ever done. They've got to do it at the high school level. Now, two things. Why don't they have one, and what is your opinion on the shot clock at that level?
Okay, the first thing, the reason why they don't have one yet is because it just got passed down. NCAA Division I just got one, and then it got down to Division II and Division III actually a year later because of budgets. You got to put, all those colleges have to put budgets in place to put the proper equipment in to have it.
Makes sense.
So now it's mandatory. So they gave every school, I think, 2 years to get everything together. So now all the colleges have one across the board. It's in. Same thing with high school. It's going to come.
I was going to say, but I've heard it's coming.
It's coming, but the schools have to budget the amount of money it's going to take to put the proper equipment in for a shot clock.
Okay.
That
makes sense.
Because every school has to have one.
Makes sense.
So it's coming. And along with that, right, because I'll give you my opinion on it in a second, but along with the shot clock, is you're going to see, because I was thinking about it over the weekend as I was stewing about my loss, right?
Yeah. Yep.
You're going to see a lot of coaches retire when that shot clock comes in, because they don't know how to coach with it. That's what you're going to see. You're going to see a lot of the older coaches.
Is that a bad thing, though?
No,
is that a bad thing?
Because
you need to turn the soil over, bro.
Absolutely.
You need to turn the soil over.
Absolutely. We talked about, to Coach O'Connell last week about when he's retiring, right?
Yeah.
I think you're going to see Coach Curtis, as soon as that shot clock hits, Coach Curtis retires.
Okay.
Because he's never played fast.
What is your opinion of the shot clock? Yay or nay? Do you want it or it doesn't matter, or you're okay with it?
I want the shot clock, and I actually want it less than 90 seconds. I'd like a 60-second shot clock.
Okay.
I want to play
from the
fast.
From the second the goalie or whoever on the defensive end possesses.
Yeah, it's boring. Girls lacrosse, to be honest with you, I'm a coach. I've been a coach, but it's boring. It stinks.
You have to look at it from the perspective of people watching. And at the college level, at the collegiate level, they're selling a product. At the high school level, you're not so much. Especially when you get into D1, what are they doing? They're selling a product, and that product is women's lacrosse. Nobody wanted to watch that, just throwing the ball around the outside. Now, varsity has a component of winning, no question, and that is what Coach Curtis did. Curtis went into, we're going to win this game. And I said during the broadcast, Ronnie Davis is not going to let him dictate that he has to come out and pressure the ball, because then that's going to open up the middle for the cutter and somebody to camp out and just, I don't know.
We definitely could have taken better advantage of our opportunities in that game.
Yes,
without a doubt. And we should have been out and pressured, in the minute. And I thought we did an okay job coming out and pressuring. But here's my bigger problem with it. Okay, about winning a game. Yes, he's there to win a game. I get that. It's strategic. He coached a game that won the game. But how about the kids? Do you think your kids want to play lacrosse like that? Do you think the win against Canandaigua in the mid-season, or early in the season or late in the season, whatever, do you think that win, that victory, is fun for those kids to go out there and play stall ball?
It can't be.
It stinks for them. And I'm talking to a coach. When I was leaving the field, there was 3 college coaches at that game, and one of them that I spoke with leaving the game has one of the Brighton players going to their school next year. And, she said to me, she's like, boy, that is a really piss poor way to play lacrosse. It was a really crappy game.
Yes, it was very frustrating, and it was. I did broadcast it. And another thing that I want to get off my chest about that game is hitting that junk goal with 30 seconds left to go. You had the full ride on. You had nobody in goal. And they dropped one with 30 seconds left to go, and classless, in my opinion. Whether that's something that I'm not saying that the coach said do that.
Well, he did. He definitely did.
Okay,
he yelled out, dump that one in.
Okay, then in that case, classless. Not cool. Yeah. My exact wording during the broadcast was, some coaches have the class not to do that. Right. And you can take that any way you want. Unnecessary, uncool. That was basically throwing you the middle bird and saying, "Ha ha, we beat you," kind of thing, and not cool.
Yeah, well,
just not cool.
I'm not here to judge Coach Curtis.
I got you.
I'm not as a fellow coach in section, because there's a lot of people out there, I'm sure, judging me.
You've got to toe the line there.
He's been around a long time. And he's very successful in his record.
Yes.
Right? He's sent a lot of kids to good schools. So I just don't like the way that they play lacrosse. So
sure,
that's my opinion. And I just feel bad for his kids, because he's got to look them in the eye. He's got to look the Lederman, the Fountain, the Strasden, the Marangola. He's got to look them in the eye and say, you know what? I don't have enough confidence in you 4. And your other teammates to go out there and play real lacrosse. So we're going to go out there and we're just going to play keep away and see if we win the game or not. And that to me, that's just sad.
I think we got to move on real quick, but I do want to throw one more thing out there that I think that is utmost respect for your offense, though, because the longer they hold it, they're keeping it away from you. And during the broadcast, I said that's an utmost nod of respect to your offense.
Sure.
Which you have a very good offense. And they actually they stole my game plan that I wanted you guys to do, to wear down the defense and to win at the draw. And it's like they were listening and they stole the game plan.
All right. Well, we will definitely see them again. So,
Yes.
in the sectional. So it's going to come down to Class B. I think is going to be Spencerport. Right now is probably number 1.
B is loaded, though,
It is Canandaigua, Brighton, and Penfield. Obviously, we didn't get the chance to talk about the Penfield game, but we can go over that at another time. And then
you took the dub. What more to talk about?
And,
what more to talk about?
And Mercy, is still hanging around there. And Irondequoit beat Brighton last week. So they got some wins under their belt. They beat Victor as well, I believe. So Class B is going to be a dogfight. So
it is. The only thing with Mercy is you have to wonder about the toughness of the schedule because they play a lot of other private schools. So you have to kind of take that into consideration. But go ahead.
But 13-team tournament, it's going to be wide open.
It's going to be it's going to be fun too.
So Section 5. Top 5.
The top 5 in Section 5. Maybe I went first last time. You go.
Oh, I get to go first this time?
Yeah.
Okay, so
unless you want me to. It's
yours. You go first this time.
All right.
Because
now
I like to disagree with you. So.
Yes, well, here's the thing. You kind of enlightened me a little bit, and I thought about it. You obviously see more games than I do. Being a man of leisure, such as yourself, I've been practicing that. You get to catch more games than I do because if I'm not broadcasting a woman's game, I'm broadcasting a boys' game. I'm always doing something, so you catch more games. So I have to rely heavily on stats and numbers and things like that. Now I am going to make at least this top 5 about players I have seen. I've seen these players. I know them. I've witnessed them. Top 5 in Section 5. Number 5, freshman. Without her, the team that she's on would not be 9-3. She is a stud at the draw. She is an animal from one end to the other. The coach can rely on it. Yeah, you know where I'm going. The coach can rely on her at any given time. She can come off the field gassed, and after 5 seconds, she'll go back out there and give 100%. I love this kid. Abby Herod is my number 5.
Okay, so you're going backwards this week.
I'm going 5 down to 1. And if anybody wants to fight over these, I'm more than glad to appease that. Number 4, okay? She gave you fits. You didn't mention her when you were discussing the people on the players on Brighton when you lost Friday. But this player gave you fits. On defense, she stopped ball. Every time you guys got near the 8 meters, she was in front stopping that ball. She won the draw. She beat you guys at the draw. Piper Davis is my number 4 defender. So I'm throwing a defender in the mix. Okay? Like I said, she hurt you guys, in my opinion. We all see things differently.
She did.
She is my number 4. Number 3, the big rig. I can't remember. You called her big something. I'm calling her the big rig. Your offensive catalyst on attack. Lexi Bernicki is my number 3. Okay? Number 2, Casey and Ellie Mooney from Pittsburgh.
You're going the duo.
I'm going with the duo. I'm going with the sisters. They're just too reliable. They're too steady. They're the players. They're the quintessential example of looking at their stats and going, stats, I can't look at them. I got to push them to the side. And you helped me to get a better understanding. It's what happens on the field. I know that, but stats are a pundit's. It's the lifeline. It's what I do. I look at stats and I try to transpose that into radio. And number 1, if there is a ball, you know who it is. If there's a ball anywhere near this kid, whether it's in the air, whether it's on the ground, whether it's off the bounce, it doesn't matter. 99% of the time, it's going to end up in her stick, and it's going to stay in her stick. She was a stud for Canandaigua last year at the draw. Now she's playing more on the wing, and her leadership cannot be measured. What she does on and off the field cannot be measured. Clancy Rood is my number 1, top 5 in Section 5.
Okay, those are good picks. Mine are a little different. Mine are different.
Well, you've seen more games. You look at it differently than I do, and that's the great thing about top 5s. They're subjective.
Right. So let's start with Abby. Okay, Abby, for you is number 1.
Yeah. 5.
Or no, I'm sorry, number 5.
Yeah.
So I'm going to categorize Abby, and Clancy and Emma O'Neill. I kind of put them in one group. I thought that they dominated Penfield.
Abs in the
Absolutely.
second half. Yeah, we didn't get a chance. Now we do.
Right.
There is a lot to talk about now that you mentioned it. A crap show the first half.
Yeah.
A defensive battle the first half. Turnover fest. And then I called it at halftime. I said the Canandaigua was going to come out. They're going to settle down. They're going to dominate at the draw. And you did. And you took advantage. And you took care of the ball.
Right. So, but, and I love Abby to death, and she's in my top 5.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
But I'll go over that. She's my number 2, but let me go over my number 5.
Oi.
Okay. She's my
Oi.
number 2, but let me
Woo.
go over my number 5.
All right.
I got to go with Morgan Cox. Okay. For Penfield. She,
Sure.
She came to play that night and she put some goals up against us. I think she had 4 goals against us. She's consistent week in and week out, night in and night out. And as I told you, I think it's really important with my Fairport Hots top 5 in Section 5.
Good job.
I'm going to give it to number 5 for Morgan
Consistency.
Cox. Yes.
Yeah. Yep.
And with consistency comes my number 4 is Lexi Bernicki. Okay, she's putting the ball in the goal. She's doing the right things. She scored some big goals for us. She's in that conversation. She could be in there every week. The way she's been playing. But the last week, I think she played real well against Penfield. I think she played well against Brighton. Her opportunities were limited against Brighton, but she still managed to show up. So Bernicki's my number 4. My number 3, you took Piper Davis, right, from the Brighton defense, and Piper definitely stands out. But number 21, Eileen Kelly, that played the lower spot, and she had 3 takeaways, caused turnovers by checking the ball out of our girls' sticks.
Yep.
That kid is a player.
Oh.
That kid can play.
Frustrating.
Yeah, so it is. And so I put her above Piper Davis because that kid, is a danger to be around if you're a lacrosse player with the ball. She will
carve you up.
She will carve you up. So she's my number 3. Number 2, back to Abby. I'm going to give Abby the props for the Penfield game.
That's awesome.
Because, she was dominant there. But her wing play was outstanding with Clancy and Emma O'Neill. But I'm going to give Abby that. But I'm got some words for Abby about the Brighton game, okay? Abby and I got to have a talk about consistency.
Yes.
She's young. She's in 9th grade. I don't think Brighton was her best game. I think she will admit to that. But her and I are going to have a conversation today to talk about, consistency and doing the right things. Because, again, on Wednesday, she was the best player on the field. On Friday, she could have made some better decisions.
It might be the youth with handling the pressure. Also, real quick, she's the kind of kid that's going to take what you have to say and apply it. She's not going to go, coach hollered at me and hurt my feelings. She's very coachable.
She is, and she's going to, we're going to talk today, and I think you're going to see the Abby of last Wednesday back. And it's not that she's been up and down, but she went down with Brighton, and I felt bad for her, but she's just got to, mentally, she's got to get a little stronger.
Yep.
But she's my number 2, right?
That's cool.
Section 5, top
That's
5,
cool.
She's my number 2, even with that Brighton game.
Yep.
My number 1, it goes to a girl that, like I said, we talk night in and night out. You got to come to play. Whether you're on a winning team or a losing team, right? If you come every night to play, that's noticeable. I got Jordan Concordia from Webster Schroeder, the goalie.
Okay. Good call. I was looking at her.
She had 10 or 12 saves against us, against Canandaigua,
Yep.
right? When you get 10 or 12 saves in a game, that's really good.
Oh, she faced a lot of shots, no question about it. No, that's a good nod. Absolutely. I was thinking about putting her up there in the either 4 or 5, but I went somewhere else.
And then she turned around and played Pittsford the next time and got another 10 or 12 saves. And during that game, I was getting the texts from my wife who was at the game, right? Because my daughter plays, and I'm reading the text saying this person got stuff, this person got stuff, save, 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 and it's Jordan saving all these balls. So I wasn't real impressed with Webster Schroeder's defense when we played them. Offensively, they got Annie Mulhall, scores in bunches, but Jordan Concordia is my number 1, Fairport Hots top 5 player, because this kid has been a wall in there and she's faced a lot of rubber, and she comes with a smile on her face and keeps playing and keeps playing.
I like it. That sort of, in my messed up head, that vindicates me not putting her in there that you did.
Right.
It does. That's cool.
Yeah, she's solid.
Good for you.
So We were off by a couple, but a couple the same, and but it's good. I think that today, next week we've got a lot of games this week. So next week, I think that you're going to see the top 5 change.
Yeah.
It's going to go each week. But the kids got to remember who are listening to this podcast, if you want to be in the Fairport Hots top 5 or the Craig the Spazman Simmons top 5.
Make it the Chosen Spot Radio top 5. There you go.
Remember, you got to come in and night out and play hard and be respectful. Because we didn't really get a chance to talk. We could talk for 30 seconds. I hope Jim says that's okay. Is the stat stuffers
Scott?
I'm sorry. The stat stuffers.
Yeah, there's a couple of them. You mentioned one. You mentioned
the
one.
Stat stuffers, and
Well, we mentioned a couple.
Yeah. So, but without calling the kids out by name, when you got 14 seconds left on the clock and you're up by 11 goals, you probably shouldn't be.
Why are you in the floor? Why are you on the field in the first place?
Exactly.
Why are you even on the field?
You shouldn't be throwing the ball in the goal because everybody sees that. You can look on GLAX 5 and you can see when you scored the goal, and it just puts a bad taste in everybody's mouth when that happens about you, as a kid, as a lacrosse player. Not taking away from anyone's skills, right? Your stick skills, your athleticism, but what's going through your head when you are jamming the ball down someone's throat when you don't need to?
But that's another situation where the kids are just doing what they're allowed to. If a player is still on the field and allowed to do that, it's a culture. It's a mindset that starts at the top. If a team has their 2s and 3s in, why are your 1s still in? All right, if you're getting thumped 20-2, don't keep your 1s in. First of all, you're running the risk of an injury. We know girls are more susceptible to the ACL and the knee injuries, and also it's just not respectful to the game, to the other team.
The game.
It doesn't, and you're not helping your players that's not helping you build depth. And how do you get to the second season? How do you get farther in the second season? By having depth. You have to have depth once you start getting to that point. So Pittsford will win that game tonight.
Pittsford, I got Pittsford as well.
Pittsford wins that game. Canandaigua beats Pelmac for the 8th time.
Okay, I'm going to agree with you on that.
Canandaigua owns them 7-0. The trinity of Savage, Arnold, and Walker, yes, but it's going to be a good battle. But I think once Canandaigua settles in, their coaching staff will figure things out if they need to, and they'll get it done.
Okay, the other big Class B game this week is Brighton and Penfield.
Brighton and Penfield, where?
Looks like Penfield.
I'm taking Penfield at home. I'm going to take Penfield at home.
I'm going to go with you on that. So
I'm going to take Penfield at home.
We're going to agree on every single game this week? Looks like it.
Man, there's no controversy in that. There's no controversy there.
Is there one that, I can pick on you about? I mean, you called it right, Brighton and Canandaigua, whether Brighton was going to take that, but
yeah, they're tough to beat at home. Anyway.
All right, so we agree on all three, and we'll see how we fare. Right?
That's all right. It's all good. All good. Great minds think alike, don't they?
They do.
Right on.
So thank everyone for coming out and listening to Rockstar Girls LAX podcast with me, Ronnie Davis, and Craig the Spazman Simmons.
Yeah.
We will be back. This should be live on YouTube, right?
Fitz tells me it's live on the YouTube channel.
If Fitz is saying that, then we're good to go.
When Fitz talks, people listen.
People listen.
He said it's live. So, hey, everybody. All right. Good. Live on YouTube. Also, you can hear the audio on Spreaker and iTunes and I don't know where else.
We got a Facebook page?
Facebook page is Rockstars GLAX.
Okay.
Rockstars GLAX. ROCSTARS. GLAX.
And if someone wants to email us questions or comments or criticisms, how do they do that?
Fitz, help me out with this. I think it's rockstarsglax@gmail.com. rockstarsglax@gmail.com. And if you have any feedback, if you have any ideas for a coach or somebody that we could call on the phone for an upcoming podcast, or have any questions or anything that you would like us to opine about, rockstarsglax@gmail.com.
You heard it right from Craig the Spazman Simmons from Chosen Spot Radio. Thank everyone for listening, and we'll talk to you next week at noon.
See ya.
Rockstars Girls Lacrosse. Rockstars Girls Lacrosse. the Rockstars Girls Lacrosse Show with hosts Ronnie Davis and Craig Spazman Simmons.